So the Competition and Markets Authority of the UK, which if you hadn't gathered by the accent is where I'm from, have denied the merger of Microsoft and Activision Blizzard in the public release document on the grounds of cloud gaming, an emerging factor of the video game industry. In the full documentation, which is publicly available, there's a lot more information, but many of the so-called video game journalists have only looked at this skin deep. They haven't gone deeper to see what else is going on here and why exactly it has been denied. So I want to talk about it today. And I want to talk about it from the view of a British person, because Brits are getting quite a bit of hate around this at the moment. And I also want to talk about it from the view of someone who has had direct dealings with the Competition and Markets Authority in their working career. So welcome everybody, my name is Doragon and these are my thoughts on the denial of the Activision Blizzard Microsoft merger. So this isn't going to be a heavily edited video. What we're going to have today is me talking unscripted to the camera with raw thoughts and experiences. If you don't want to watch that, fine, please just have it on in the background, have a listen to me, and leave comments below on points you didn't know about, things you agree with, disagree with. Let's have a civil conversation and no personal attacks, please. On the front of dealing with the CMA, I do need to address that first, because I need to lend credence to my experiences. I work for a big tech company. I've worked in big tech for the past 12 years at this point, and there is always something that is under the scrutiny of the Competition and Markets Authority, or the CMA as most people know them. And generally, the CMA are very good at the job that they perform. They are in place to ensure that the consumer is treated fairly, that the consumer has adequate competition and options available to them to offer them the best service for the best price. That is a very dumbed down version of the CMA's entire reason for being. And generally, I would say they do a very good job at what they do, at what they are in place to achieve, because they have policies and processes in place that are constantly updating for changes in industry and populace to make sure that they are adhering to what the populace needs. My experiences with them have come from big tech, and one shining example is the attempted sale of an entire network. So we're talking the software to run the network, the software to troubleshoot and manage the network, the hardware of the network, the customers of the network, and the software to manage those customers. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a straight up and down full network sale. It would mean anybody who doesn't have a nationwide network of that variety would be able to come in, purchase it, and start running it. The sale of that network was being given to one of the direct competitors, because the company I worked for and this competitor were the only two operators of this service in the entirety of the UK. So it just made sense, because with my company wanting to shut down that particular network, they didn't want to undermine their customers or leave their customers out in the cold. So if they just give it to the competitor, there should be no break in service for anyone involved. We finished day one, they finished day two. Basically, it was meant to be a straight handover. But the CMA got involved because this sale would be creating a monopoly of this particular type of network and service within the UK. And they ended up denying the decision. I got interviewed by them. They asked a lot of questions. Some I had the answers to due to my work on both the customer service and technical front of this particular network. And some I didn't have the answers to because they were more managerial sales and such, which was not my area. But they were very fair in their questioning, and they didn't expect you to know every single answer. They wanted the view of the individual. As I said, I thought it was a really good thing because it meant no break in service for the customer, which was my main core concern in the two areas that I worked in. It was always customer focused. But they denied the deal on the grounds that because it was an entire network sale, it could have gone to tender and anybody could have come in And we could have then kept two people in the market offering this service, creating competition, which drives prices down, services up, which is better for the customer, for the consumer. Because this hadn't gone to tender, it had just been offered to the direct competitor, that was deemed as anti-competitive, and as such, the deal was denied. What eventually transpired is the company I worked for closed that network down and created a default monopoly because the only other provider was the direct competitor. But because we had made that decision to close the network, we weren't selling it, that was acceptable in that particular creation of a monopoly. So they do understand that monopolies can happen. They do understand that sometimes there is only one route out of a situation. But they also need to understand that there has to be at least an effort to create competition in the space to protect the consumer. Because as we've just said, as they have said, competition drives down prices, drives up quality, and the person who benefits most from that is the consumer. If we switch that lens to the Activision Blizzard deal with Microsoft, I can see some similarities there. And I was very dubious as to whether it would go through. I did believe, after they said that there would be no change in the home console market, that the deal would indeed go through and we would be seeing Xbox Activision Blizzard as a whole by 2024. I was very nicely surprised, therefore, to find that they had denied it. Now, bear with me on that nicely surprised point. I was nicely surprised because it was good to see that a governing body was doing their due diligence. They hadn't just looked at this deal as a home console impact, as some of the other governing bodies around the globe definitely have from their full documents that they have released for their approvals or denials of the deal. They have been looking at this as, how does it impact home consoles? How does it impact future consoles? How does it impact cloud services? How does it impact PC, Mac, and Linux users? They have looked at it as an entirety whole, and they have looked at it with what looks like a very fine tooth comb. Which means they've come up with more concerns than they think Microsoft have resolutions for, especially with what Microsoft have already put out there with their big marketing and bravado. The public-facing document that was released with the initial announcement stated that the main reason for the denial was cloud gaming. The fact that Microsoft already hold a 60 to 70% market share of cloud gaming services because they come bundled with Game Pass Ultimate is a huge concern. When you have such an unassailable market lead to begin with, it's understandable that governing bodies would think, well, how do we ensure that competition maintains and continues in this space? But they did go further, and they explained that they need to be putting these games and services on other cloud gaming options, such as Amazon's Luna or even PlayStation's Plus Premium. And the reason they said that is that every deal that they had struck, all of these 10-year deals with cloud gaming companies such as Nvidia GeForce Now, such as Boosteroid, and such as Ubisoft, were actually just further enforcing a Microsoft monopoly. And the reason for that is most of these services operate primarily on Microsoft Windows. So to access these services, you need a Windows PC. Now that's not completely true. I have done videos on both GeForce Now and Boosteroid with only using Android. This video is filmed on Android. This video is edited and uploaded on Android. My entire YouTube career is done through Android. So, you know, if you want to support my base level content creation, a sub to the channel would be absolutely fantastic. But through the facts and figures that the CMA have had access to after dealing with all of the companies involved, they have discerned that most of the users of the three services who have signed a 10-year deal with Microsoft for Microsoft Xbox games and Activision Blizzard games, if the deal goes through, all operate through Microsoft Windows. What you then have is these three services don't come with inclusive libraries. To use these three cloud services, you have to buy your game via a different means. Because these are Microsoft titles, that means through the Microsoft Store or through Steam. And here's the rub. This is actually creating a further monopoly, a bigger bonus for Microsoft, because in their latest earnings call, released just a few hours before the CMA's actual decision, they said that they had had a 4% downturn in all Xbox revenue over the last 12 months, with two of the primary concerns being hardware and game sales. So by signing deals with 3 services that require you to buy the games to play them in the cloud, they are actually bolstering their own failing area by making you buy these games to use on these other cloud services. As you can see, fairly anti-competitive mindset there from Microsoft. A bloodthirsty and good business mindset, but anti-competitive. And as such, that draw the ire of the CMA once more. But then they also note that Microsoft own and provide Azure cloud solutions, which many cloud services around the world operate within. What that means is they've got that vertical monopoly. They have the platform that people are going to access these services through. They have the platform to make the software that people want to play on these services, and they have the means to provide them through their own storefronts and make money that way. They then also provide the underlying cloud platforms that these companies buy from Microsoft, and it just ends up with everything going Microsoft's way. As you can see from a governing body perspective, that's not good competition. Now, if they had also signed this deal with the likes of, say, Amazon's Luna, it may have made the situation that bit easier. But Luna has only just launched over here in the UK within the last month. Is that enough time for them to strike a deal with the service? A service that, when this acquisition started, was only available in the USA? That's a question, isn't it? But putting them on PlayStation, well now, they're the direct competitors. Microsoft aren't going to want to put it on PlayStation, but realistically, it's the only other place with a cloud gaming library that is inclusive of the monthly cost that they could do such a thing and belay those concerns of the CMA. A difficult one to overcome, and if Stadia had still been around, putting those games on Stadia would have probably been the resolution for this entire situation. However, Stadia is not around, and everything they did looked to a governing body like it was leading back to Microsoft, which is anti-competitive and monopolistic. Completely understand, again, from my personal dealings with them and how they operate, how they came to that conclusion. But the full document goes into even more detail. For example, they go into the detail that while it wouldn't change the console landscape, this particular deal, because it is highly unlikely that Microsoft would pull the likes of Call of Duty from PlayStation, which is where they make most of their money from, they have signed a deal with Nintendo to bring those games and services to Nintendo consoles for the next 10 years. And quite rightly, they asked the question, which was never answered, which is why it was denied, how they are going to put the likes of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 upon the Switch. The Switch is the most prolific current home console. It is in over 170 million households, which is more than the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles combined. To put that in perspective, it's more than the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One consoles combined. You then also face the fact that whilst cloud gaming can work to bring some games to the Switch, that's only in a few countries around the globe. The Nintendo Switch is available worldwide in every single country on this planet, which is over 200 countries. Cloud gaming from all of the different service providers combined is available in 35 to 40 countries. As you can understand, there's no way, therefore, that they could put Call of Duty, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Overwatch 2 on the Switch in Africa. There are no cloud gaming services of any variety in Africa. So to get those games on that console this year, as per the signed contract deal with Nintendo, they would need to have the next Call of Duty running natively on Nintendo Switch hardware. And as the contract specifically states a parity experience, the CMA understandably said, how? And they didn't get an answer. Or at least, they didn't get an answer that satisfied them, their policies, their processes to say that this should go through. And that's just two factors. That's just cloud gaming and Switch. Reading the full documentation that the CMA have released actually shows about 100 different points of their concerns, of their issues, and of the challenges put to Microsoft. That through the deals that they have signed, through the things that they have said they will do with their behavioral conditions, was not satisfactory to the CMA to say, yes, this deal can go ahead. They deemed that it was unsatisfactory, and as such, the deal can't go ahead. Now, how do I feel about that as a Brit? Right now, I hate the hate that is coming towards us as a nation from gamers worldwide. Activision have definitively said that the UK is a backwards arse economy, essentially. They have come out and attacked the UK people, and I'm not on board with that, Activision. If you do happen to be watching this, fire your PR department, fire Bobby Kotick, and get people in there who actually understand how to speak to other human beings. Because saying you're a backwards economy and we don't want to operate with you or near you isn't exactly enamoring yourself to either ourselves, the public, who should have your interests at heart because it would give us access to Activision Blizzard games via Game Pass, but it's definitely not going to enamor you to the CMA and appeals court, who are going to, you know, take on your appeal in 12 months' time. Microsoft have said similar things. Phil Spencer has said similar things. So same deal there. Get rid of your PR departments and Spencer, because you can't be attacking a nation because a governing body has done their job. It's just not on, guys. Rein your neck in, rein your ego in, and realize what you've not done right to end up with this result. To games journalists, games commentators, YouTubers, and content creators, look, we've been on the receiving end of hatred for the best part of the last 1,000 years. It's what we Brits are known for, being generally universally hated. But the British populace hasn't done anything in this deal. Yes, they have a say. Part of the CMA's process is they go out to the British public and say, what do you feel about this? And given the documentation, it would seem that the overwhelming majority of responders didn't want the deal to happen. It doesn't hold that much sway with the CMA, but it is obviously a concern that they have to take into account. So just stop the Brit hate because a governing body has done their job, please. Everybody. It's not the British populace who have done this. It is a governing body with strict rules, regulations, and laws to follow. And they have done that. In terms of how I feel about it, of what I think of this outcome, I actually think it's the right thing. I think the CMA have done their job, and I think they have done it incredibly well on this occasion. It wouldn't change anything for me either way in terms of my gaming experience. I have access to Activision Blizzard games on the PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. I have access to Activision Blizzard games on the phone that I am recording this video on. I can play Call of Duty natively on the device that's filming this video. Like, it's not going to change my personal usage. Even if the deal went through, it likely wouldn't change anybody's personal usage, because as the CMA have said, Microsoft would be utter morons to take Call of Duty off PlayStation and make it Xbox exclusive because they make more money through Call of Duty on PlayStation. You go where the money is as a company. They're going to put their games on PlayStation, regardless of what happens. But in terms of fair competition in the industry, and one specific point that the CMA did bring up in their full documentation, I very much believe that they made the right choice. And it is on that one point, the point of this acquisition taking one of the biggest third-party developers and publishing houses off the market, and therefore diminishing competition industry-wide, that I fully agree with the CMA. I have been struggling to put words to why I don't want this deal to go through. Because I didn't want this deal to happen, and it's nothing to do with preferring one platform over another. I want Xbox to succeed. Halo is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I love the feeling of racing in the Forza games. Psychonauts 2 is one of the greatest games in the past 5 years, and Hi-Fi Rush was an absolute joy at the beginning of 2023. I love to game on Xbox with my Xbox friends, but I didn't want them to get hold of Activision Blizzard. And when I read that line, when I read that piece in the full release, the full decision document of the Competition Markets Authority about diminishing industry-wide competition by the acquisition of one of the biggest third-party developers and publishing houses, that's where I understood what my problem was. We've already lost Bethesda as a big third-party developer and publishing house, and most of their games, if not all of their future games, will be completely exclusive to Xbox and Microsoft platforms. If we did the same with Activision Blizzard, and then somebody goes to buy up Ubisoft because there is a precedent that has been set that you can just buy up successful publishing houses, and then somebody else goes to buy Take-Two, somebody else tries to buy EA, suddenly we don't have any third-party developers and publishing houses left. Everything is being published by Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft. And when you come down to an industry that's only got 2 or 3 players, the innovation, the competition, and the bonuses to the customer diminish greatly. I would prefer Activision Blizzard to remain independent under new management, ideally, because the abusive nature of the management that's there currently has been well documented for the last 2 years. And we keep that competition in the industry, industry-wide. I do think the CMA have made the right choice, and 3 of their big points resonate with me hugely. Though the cloud gaming one, it's kind of take it or leave it for the 10 or 11 people that actually use it, and that's coming from a cloud gaming enthusiast, let's be honest here. But the other 2, the fact that they can't get these things running on Switch natively, which they need to do for this worldwide acquisition, and the fact that buying a third-party publishing house with developers underneath it would mean an overall diminishing of competition in the industry, I actually think they've made the right choice. And in the long run, it's going to be the best thing for us, the consumer, the gamer. But we need to let the dust settle before most of the rest of the community can actually see that. But hey, what do you guys think? Like I say, this is a raw thoughts, unscripted video coming off the back of reading that full document. And I just wanted to get it out there as a Brit who is subject to the CMA's policies in my everyday work, and as someone who has had direct dealings with the CMA in the past and actually thinks they're one of the better governing bodies we have at the moment, because their policies and processes do update for the industries, worlds, societies, and populace that we have. I think they do a good job overall. Do they make mistakes? Of course. Every single governing body does. But I think overall they do a good job, and I do think with this particular decision they have got it right for the reasons that they've outlined and the 97 others in that full document. But like I say, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be kind to one another, be kind to me. We don't need to be attacking each other over 2 megacorps who only see us all as numbers trying to get together. But otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Doragon. These have been my thoughts on the CMA's block of the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. And until next time, have yourselves a fantastic day and take care.